Alright, here we go.
Okay.
This must take half the charge to powering that thing.
Not really.
No. I'm sure that's a very minor thing in comparison to. So that's gone from dark to light. Is that because
It's now daylight. It's
seen
the light, and it's like, oh, okay, daylight mode. Yeah.
So this really is kind of like a smart car, really.
It's very smart.
Mm.
So this central console, you can choose what you want to display on there. It's got Google Maps. You can show my calendar for the day.
Wow.
You can choose your MP3s or radio stations. You can even surf the net.
Really?
Yeah, but you probably shouldn't do that while you're driving.
While driving, yeah. And you've obviously got all your energy consumption and
Yeah,
that kind of thing here as
that's
well.
one of the readouts it has, which is can be quite educational.
Yeah.
Show how efficiently you're driving.
Yeah. And so what were you saying before, that electric cars are the opposite to petrol cars in terms of their efficiency?
Yeah, it's they do not lose efficiency when you're driving around town, and in fact they gain it because you have less wind resistance at lower speeds. So this car, which gets around 400 k's on the motorway, will get closer to 500 k's when you're driving around town.
Right. Interesting. And you know, everyone talks about range anxiety and all that. So 400 k's now, that's pretty good, isn't it? That's getting pretty close to a petrol car of the same size.
Yeah, it's especially a petrol car with a nice big engine that has lots of torque and power. This has 320 kilowatts, which it gets at 0 to 100 in around 4 seconds. It's so a petrol car with that kind of performance would get pretty bad mileage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and not get very far on a tank unless it was the kind of tank that costs $200 to fill up.
Yeah.
That is one of the things about driving on electricity. It's so much cheaper than petrol.
Yeah, so tell me, how much does it cost you to charge this fully?
So for 400 kilometres of motorway driving, that costs $20 to fill up on electricity.
20 bucks.
20 bucks.
And how long does it take you to charge it?
So that you can do that charge here in New Zealand in as little as 4 hours. So I have a charging station where I can plug in from empty. It'll take 4 hours, but it's that question it's almost it's very misleading, because how long it actually takes me to charge is about 30 seconds, because that's how long it takes me to plug the car in when I get home.
Right.
And then from that point on, it's the same as plugging in a cell phone. Nobody knows how long it takes to charge a cell phone, because you plug it in and then it's full when you go and pick it up. And it's the same with an electric car. You plug it in when you get home and then it's full in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's like having your own private gas station in your garage.
Yeah. So the whole thinking is quite different, obviously, for electric. It's not fair to think of it with the same range and the same charging times and stuff as filling up with petrol, because you're saying the whole way of doing it is completely different.
You charge electric cars in a totally different way to how you fill up a petrol car. You don't wait for it to get empty and then sit around while it fills up. You just drive it during the day and then plug it in, and when you get home, and by morning it's full.
Yeah.
So really you don't need a huge amount of range. You really just need enough to cover your daily needs, and for most people that's, I think the average for New Zealand is something crazy small, 35 k's or maybe 40 k's a day. So take something like the Nissan Leaf, which has, depending on how you drive, somewhere between 120 and 150 k's of range. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but actually it covers just about everything you would want to do. And the only time that that's not really enough is if you want to go on a road trip.
Yeah. What you're going to do, tell me about that road trip.
Yeah, so I have a road trip planned for January, and I'm going to spend about 3 weeks driving from Cape Reinga to the Bluff. So, and the reason I'm taking it that long spending that long is so that I can stop many times along the way and show the car and talk to people about electric cars and all the advantages and take them for rides, rather than having the pressure of a road trip where I'm trying to get to the other end of the country as quickly as possible.
So on that road trip, you're going to take this car, the Model S,
Yes.
the Roadster,
Yes.
and the Nissan Leaf?
No, actually.
Just the Roadster and
So
the Model S, yeah.
there is, by January, there will be a second Model S in the country. It's a left-hand drive car that a Kiwi named Carl Barlev, he's been working in Norway, and he bought a Tesla while he was there. In Norway, they're very popular cars. So he's moving back to New Zealand and bringing his car with him. So he's going to join us on the road trip. So there'll be 2 Model S's and the Roadster.
And where are you going
Is
to
it called?
I was going to say, it'd be a great element to the story if we
Get pulled over. Not great for me.
No, not pulled over, but more outgunned him.
Yeah.
Gone days. Trying to get away from the cops. And so obviously for that road trip, there's a message there, isn't there? You're showing that this range anxiety is non-existent for you.
It really is non-existent, and in terms of the other kind of road trip where you are trying to drive to the other end of the country as quickly as possible, I'm actually doing that on Wednesday. I'm driving to Christchurch. So there's an event, a motorsport event at the end of November in Christchurch called E-Velocity, and I'm going to take the Model S, and I'm going to get there by driving. So Wednesday morning I'm leaving Auckland, driving to Taupo, plugging in Taupo for less than 4 hours, then carrying on to Wellington, spending the night in Wellington, and then carrying on to Christchurch. So, in a day and a half you can get from Auckland to Christchurch, which seems pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah.
Or in one day you can get Auckland to Wellington.
So obviously the superchargers that Tesla has in the US, would you like to see those here?
Oh, I mean, yeah, of course I would love to see them here. They've installed over 200 of them worldwide, and those superchargers put in 80% charge in 20 minutes, and they really make a cross-country trip really take no longer than driving a petrol car. And that 20 minutes is what you'd spend anyway, taking a break for a snack and a toilet stop. But that won't happen until Tesla officially roll out support here.
Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, you've obviously chosen to go and get this car, same as the Roadster, before Tesla makes them officially available here.
Yes.
Does that make things more difficult with you, with the Roadster, and sort of with getting this car?
Actually, owning the Roadster is what gave me the confidence to bring in the Model S. The drivetrain in an electric car has so few moving parts and so little maintenance that you do your annual maintenance, and it's really the same as a warrant of fitness. You check the brakes, you check the tyres. There's nothing that wears out. So having had that experience owning the Roadster has given me the confidence to bring in a Model S, even though it's not supported here by Tesla. And they will roll out support. It's just a matter of time.
I mean, as you mentioned, electric cars are already quite popular in Norway and other European countries. And I think this car was the fastest selling luxury car in the US, was it last year or?
Yeah, it was.
Do you think New Zealand has been slow at the uptake of electric vehicles?
Yeah, and there are so many contributing factors to that. Part of it, I think the major reason is a lack of education. Most Kiwis just don't know about electric cars. They just don't know they exist. If you say electric car to them, they think you're talking about a Prius, which of course is not an electric car. To my mind, if you don't plug it in the wall, it's not an electric car. So that's one of the things I'd like to achieve through doing the road trip in January, is to get some media attention on electric cars, create a little bit of education for people that they do exist and that they are not golf carts or electric wheelchairs. They are, they really do perform. Even the most affordable electric cars like the Nissan Leaf are really quite zippy and very practical, have lots of space, and make a really great car for day-to-day driving. And people also don't realise how cheap they are to run. So electricity is a quarter the price, and in the worst case, it's a quarter of the price of filling up with petrol. So it doesn't take very long for those savings to add up. The sort of average fuel bill for Kiwis is $2,500 a year. You can replace that with a $500 electricity bill. So, a $20,000 car saving $2,000 a year in petrol, it's a pretty easy sell, I think, once you know the facts. And and it's very satisfying driving past petrol stations and kind of smiling quietly that you don't have to stop and you don't have to really care what the price of petrol is.
And they can take a look at your number plate as well.
Yeah, sure.
Which is lol gas.
Lol gas, yeah. There's a lot of myths about electric cars that have been either intentionally or unintentionally spread. People think that if electric cars are adopted, that we're going to overload the power grid, or empty our hydro lakes, but it's just not true.
But just talking to you back at your house, and actually I'll just say something before I continue as well. Just I think maybe double back when you get a chance.
Yes, because we're getting quite far away from home.
And then we'll get back on that good, great straight.
Yes.
Is Johnson keen to look? I think I can see him a couple of cars back here. Cool. I might just give him a text and tell
Yep.
him.
We're going to turn around.
Take the next exit. I'll just do that for us.
Maybe not the next exit because I'm too many lanes
cool.
away.
No
It's
worries.
just passing,
Yeah,
but
sweet.
we'll go off at Great North Road.
Cool. I texted him now that it will be next exit.
Yeah, no, you're right. I should have taken. And a speed camera.
First photo in the
Yeah, well, it took me till Thursday to get the my New Zealand plates, so I was driving on the Dutch plates that I had.
Which is illegal, isn't it?
Well, it's sort of you're allowed to do it in as much as you're allowed to put dealer plates on a car, and
right.
so for the sole purpose of getting the car to a compliance centre,
right.
And getting it registered. So, I toyed with the idea of setting up some speed cameras, but I think they'd take one look at it and they'd go, Tesla Model S, how many of those in the country? It wouldn't take them long to track me down.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to get away for a very long time. So, talking about the infrastructure.
Actually, I never quite finished talking about the myths, because there are.
There are a lot of myths. Batteries, bad for the environment.
For example, yes.
Obviously, range anxiety, which we've already covered extensively.
Yes.
Gosh, what else is there?
So talking about batteries, there are these myths about batteries in electric vehicles, and a lot of it is old information that was probably true for nickel-cadmium batteries, for instance. They have heavy metals in them. They're not good for the environment, and the mining of the cadmium is a very nasty process. But electric cars don't run on those batteries. Electric cars use lithium batteries, which is a very clean mining process, and they don't suffer from the short lifespan that other batteries do.
Basically the same batteries you have in your MacBook or your phone.
Well, they when the Tesla Roadster was put together, they were very similar batteries to what you would have in a cell phone. But actually, with the Model S, the battery technology has gone beyond that. They now have very, very long lifespans and very little degradation.
So what do you mean by very long lifespan?
Like, so less than 1% loss of capacity per year. So after 10 years, that's the thing. The batteries in electric cars, they don't just stop working one day. What happens is they gradually lose capacity, and you're talking about less than 1% per year. So after 10 years, worst case, you've lost 10% of your range.
So what's that, 360k sort of range on the,
Instead of,
on the open road?
yeah, down from 400, and that's after 10 years. And of course, batteries are replaceable. So Tesla have already announced a replacement battery for the Roadster, and that increases the range of the Roadster from 400 k's to almost 650 k's. So that's almost Auckland to Wellington, and without charging.
That's the new batteries that are available for the Roadster at the moment.
Yeah, they're not available yet, but they have announced that they're going to.
Right.
Yeah.
650k range.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's very impressive.
Do you think? I mean, the other thing as well that you often read is that, electric cars, sure, they don't emit, obviously, any carbon, any pollution while they're running.
Yes.
But it makes no sense if the electricity is being generated from non-renewable sources. But in New Zealand, we're actually in a prime position to have them, aren't we? Because 75% of our electricity is already renewably generated. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so again, it's a case where information has been imported from overseas. So the US has a reasonably, they have some renewable, but they burn quite a lot of coal, and these days they burn quite a lot of natural gas because natural gas is a lot cheaper. And the US power grid does have a reasonable amount of CO2 emissions. And so there is the argument that you're just shifting the emissions from the tailpipe to some smokestack somewhere else. But actually, even in the worst case, and you're using a coal-powered power station, coal-run power station, the emissions are still less than you would see with a petrol car, most petrol cars. In New Zealand, we have a very clean power grid. We have, as you said, 75% renewable generation. So you can charge up from the New Zealand power grid and completely guilt-free. There's really a fraction of the emissions that you would see using a petrol car.
So, just taking off there, you can really feel that 100% torque right from the moment you put your foot down.
Oh, really? That was I was nowhere near.
But
if we can find a quiet road, I can
give it a good crack.
Yeah.
I mean, even when we were cruising at 100 before and getting up to that now, it's obviously so silent in here.
Yes.
Well, I suppose as well, probably not heaps more silent than a modern, petrol car.
Yeah, petrol engines can be pretty quiet.
You still hear the road noise and all that.
Yeah.
Do you miss though when you put your foot on the accelerator? Do you miss that good hum of a V8 or anything like that?
No, I don't. It's actually quite buzzy, taking off with crazy fast acceleration and not making a screaming racket when you're doing it. There is that sort of idiot factor, where if you make a noise, everyone looks at you and they're like, well, what an idiot, to put it politely. Whereas I can take off faster than those guys and in total silence.
Yeah, a bit classier.
Yeah, it's very classy. It's very classy.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't. This is an example of a very high-end luxurious car. you know, it's over $100,000 to bring one of these into the country, and not everyone can afford a $100,000 car, but you can get, you know, most of the same benefits with a car that's barely more than $20,000. The Nissan Leaf is an excellent car, and you can get those second-hand. They're quite affordable.
Yep.
And once you include the savings from not having to buy petrol, then they're even more affordable.
So yeah, I mean, obviously it has to be said, and you have said it. This isn't in everyone's price range. This isn't what we, you know, if EV takes off in New Zealand, this won't be the car that will be
No.
around everywhere, and you're kind of aware of that.
Yeah, but it's kind of a...
You're saying that there are actually feasible cars for average Joe.
Yes.
To get.
Already, right now, you can buy an electric car that is perfectly capable for 95% of what most people need to do from day to day.
So do you think it's inevitable that EVs will take off in New Zealand?
Yeah, I think so. We have the perfect conditions for electric vehicle adoption. We have an extremely high percentage of renewable power generation, and most people's driving is well within the range of electric vehicles, and we have an excellent power grid. It's so we run 230 volts, and it's everyone. Most people have garages in their houses. That's another really important factor. If you want to plug in your car, you really do want it in a garage, and most people do have garages.
There was, I mean, talking about the grid though, when we're back at your house, you were saying, you know, that you're going to have to, well, you don't have to, but if you wanted to get that three-phase, you know, charging to make it faster, you'd have to invest quite a bit in rewiring up your driveway. Does the grid need a lot more reinvestment if everyone were to go electric vehicle tomorrow? Would it be able to handle?
It actually, it could. Even if every single petrol-run light passenger vehicle was converted just overnight to run on electricity, that would increase the country's power consumption by about 12%. So that's well within the existing capability, and in the very near future, more than that is being added to the grid in terms of renewable generation. So Mighty River Power have a huge amount of renewable generation that's already consented for construction. And in terms of the actual load on the grid, most electric vehicle charging is done at night, and at night is when the power grid is sitting pretty much idle. So it's even if the entire country switched to running on electric cars tomorrow, the grid would cope without a problem. And would save billions of dollars on imported oil. And actually, you know, that for me is a very important factor in why I'm advocating so strongly for the uptake of electric vehicles, is that we spend $9 billion a year on importing petroleum, and that's money that we could be pumping into our local economy. I'd much rather be running on 75% renewable, 100% made, New Zealand made electricity. I hate the idea that we're sending $9 million a year overseas. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, obviously there's still the perception or the myth, or whatever you want to call it, that EVs are just for greedy hippies. Is that why you've pushed it so hard? Are you pushing it purely for the environmental, you know, credentials, or like you've been saying, there's more to it than that?
No,
it makes financial sense.
There's a lot more to it than that, and I think it's good for the country. It's, you know, the green advantages in a lot of the ways are a nice side effect, but the financial advantages for New Zealand are huge, and we could be completely independent. We could be For our transport needs, we could have total independence from the rest of the world. We don't have to be importing oil